as we share their stories. Can you hear me?
No.
I'm a little talker. So, okay, hello. One of the things that I hope is represented is the location of the museum. So it's one of the things that I was excited about is because of its location and where it's located and the accessibility that people have. So those who are going to a concert who probably would not have ever gone to the museum will get exposed to things. So on exhibit, you'll see a lot of things that people can just randomly see as they're walking through, and they could be going to a Taylor Swift concert, but yet they're going to see things that represent all these great, legendary people, and that opens the door to more people to have access to Lead Belly's story, Woody Study, and all the others, so that kind of that legacy continues, and they're educated about things that maybe they would have never known about or found out about. So that's what I'm kind of excited about, and hope that we can gain from his position being there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Some of both Lead Belly and Woody, their popularity, Lead Belly had it in his life. Woody's was mostly after he passed from Huntington's. So he had a short life, and he didn't tour, or didn't have that kind of experience as a musician or a songwriter. So I think that having him, we're based in New York. We have Oklahoma, the Woody Guthrie Center. We partner with the Grammy Museum every once in a while, but really to be in the Northeast, I think, is very special. And also, Woody has a really wild connection with Boston. We've partnered with the Dropkick Murphys, which is a Boston-based punk band. Over the last 25 years, we worked together on a first song called Gonna Be a Blackout Tonight, and the album was called Blackout. And the same week that the album dropped was the Northeast blackout.
Yep.
New York City was out of power for over 10 hours. It has never happened in history. And so Ken Casey, the lead singer of the band, called Nora and said, "That was spooky, you want to do it again?" And she said, "Yeah, that sounds great." So, they came back, and Ken was so sweet. He said, "I know this sounds a little silly, but do you have any lyrics with the word Boston in it? We're a Boston band." And no, just thinking if there was any way we could connect Woody. And she said, "Yeah, I have, songs of Sacco and Vanzetti. Woody wrote a lot of songs about Sacco and Vanzetti up in Braintree, Mass, but those are pretty specific and topical." And she goes, "But I have this, I don't know if you were interested, but I have this really kind of silly lyric about a sailor peg who lost his leg and climbing up the topsails, I lost my leg." It's not even a song. It's barely a piece of writing. But it has the word Boston in it if you want it. And they took it and they put music to it, and it's called I'm Shipping Up to Boston. It has this really incredibly musically powerful element to it, and when you listen to it, it is wild. It just so happens that the year that they released it, the Boston team, Red Sox, won the World Series and broke the curse of the Bambino, which is a big deal in Boston. And Papelbaum, who was the pitcher of the game, that was the song he chose to come out to. And so it became like an anthem for Boston, as I'm shipping up to Boston with this Woody Guthrie silly lyric. I mean, of all the lyrics that Woody Guthrie wrote, this was such a silly one. But anyway, Ken came back and said, "Wow, Nora, that was really fun. You want to do it again?" And so we worked on 2 albums with them over the last 2 years, specifically called This Machine Still Kills Fascists and Okima Rising. And they're 2 albums of full Woody lyrics with original music by Dropkick Murphys. So we're very much in Boston, but I don't think Boston knows it necessarily. So I'm really excited to have a physical location to connect to Woody.
Great stories.
Yeah. Oh, and you provided me with the perfect segue for Livingston. So could you tell us, in your opinion, why Boston is an ideal place for a Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame?
There are a number of locations that would work just fine. What we're always looking for is not where it is or what its name, what's crucial is the passion behind it. It's right there is a man named Joe Spaulding,
Yeah.
Siah Spaulding, old friend of mine. And the reason why it should be in Boston, why it is in Boston, why it is being done so beautifully, is because of the energy and the passion of that man. You know, one of the things that thank you, Joe. So one of the things that I think about is when I love the catalyst that brings things along. And so we had the great folk explosion of the early 60s. And you don't have to look far to see the genius of Bob Dylan's fingerprints, footprints in the mud all over that crime scene. So you need individuals that carry that spark of genius, that passion, and that gets balls rolling.
Beautiful. Okay, you're up next, Noel.
As a remnant of the explosion? Fragment of the explosion.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you ain't no slouch yourself. We were reminiscing here about the first time that we shared a stage together, which was, in fact, in Boston. One of the questions that Dina posed to us before we took this panel was the person here today with whom we could identify most. And I chose Liv because when you're a member of the group, I mean, we could have been, as a matter of fact, it was suggested when Peter and Mary and I were put together that we call the group the Willows, which, you know, was a perfectly good, there were the Seekers and the Weavers and it made a lot of sense. And then Albert Grossman, manager at the time, was managing nothing but an idea, said Noel could change his name to Paul, and then we could call the group Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I heard all those horror stories, you know, Cary Grant, whose actual name was, I don't know, Arnold Wizanowski or whatever. I didn't want to go through that. I said, I'll take it on as a middle name, not realizing that the middle name was going to take my whole life someplace else. So the reason I identify with Liv is that first one out of the Taylor family chute was James, and took up a lot of room because he achieved fame in a very short amount of time, thanks, I think, to some Beatles intervention, the first recording. But, so Liv's capacity to introduce himself as a whole person and make an entire life based on music, competitive as it might have been with another member of his family, really parallels, in a sense, Paul's ability to step out of the group Peter, Paul, and Mary and be an individual. Now, granted, we had an advantage because we were called by our individual names on stage, even though mine was not real. Yeah. so I really applaud your talent, your persistence, and your companionship.
Yeah.
Those are beautiful words. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. So part of, or a big part of what we're trying, I shouldn't say trying, part of what we're doing at the Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame is honoring the past, celebrating the present, and nurturing the future. To you, each of you all, what, personally and professionally, why do you think it's important to have places like this in our world? And we'll start with Noel.
I'm glad you're starting with me because I don't think I'd remember what the question was.
We just make something up.
I think it's quite actually extraordinary, and mostly because it's about music. To go to a museum, see paintings on the wall, to see statues in the garden, to see poetry in a frame on a wall someplace, has a kind of static quality to it that renders it less than memorable. But when you hear a piece of music, I mean, for instance, I encourage all of you to go to the Dylan Museum in Tulsa. It's very interactive, as Woody's is. I mean, Dina and I were just talking about the little shack that was built there to explain in vivid detail the Dust Bowl and the roots, much of the hardship that Woody lived through in his family. But that's what a museum of music can do. It can communicate in a very visceral sense on a lot of emotional levels, because believe it or not, to say the is different than singing the. You get more emotion, you get connected, no matter what the content is, you're going to feel drawn into it, whether you dismiss it or accept it. That's the excitement about what you've done as a museum. The interactive quality of FARHOF has yet to be fully realized. We've been on Joe's case about that. You know, he wants to put statue heads out in the hallway, and I'm asking him to put headphones on the statue heads so you can pull them off and listen to what the people are sitting there. That's my take on museums.
Thank you. Livingston, what do you think?
The ability to go someplace and see what's important. I just got back from Mexico City, and we were going to museum after museum with my wife, and we walked by a Sears store. And I wanted to go in. I was with my wife and sister-in-law and brother-in-law, the four of us. And they weren't enthusiastic about going into Sears, but I was. And the reason why is that I wanted to see, I love to go to hardware stores, and when I go to a community that I'm not familiar with. I wanted to go to the Sears, I wanted to go to the tool department and see what made sense to these people, what we had in common, what they were using that we didn't use. And so these concentrations, museums are everywhere. One of the difficulties that we have is that, I'm going to get to the museum in a second, but one of the difficulties that we have is not being situationally aware. And nothing narrows our view like being fearful. And so if we can control fear, it really allows us to see so much more. And I was bemused when I wanted to go to the Sears. They go, why, no, Sears there? No. And I said, no, this is a contemporary museum. I need to go see what's important. So having these places where you look and you see what's of value. There, you don't have to agree that it was of value to you to understand that it was of value to somebody. And that's important to take a look at. Just quickly while we're on this, it's a little bit off to one side, but one of the things that very much concerns me these days is elders. You were out of the loop, as were you, but Paul and I are right there. This notion of elders saying, I'm scared. The reality is that you do not have the right to be scared. Stop it. People are using fear to get you from a Bounty paper towel commercial to an Ozempic commercial. And I'm tired of them doing that. I'm tired of elders in particular allowing themselves to descend into states of fear. You are going to be okay. You have been seen by favorable stars. Those stars will continue to shine. If you are fearful, you are in a state of panic, and if you are in a state of panic, you cannot be helpful to the solution. Are we clear on this one? Amen. And furthermore, the reason why we visit museums is that They give us a continuity of life. They give us a still and a safe place. Indeed, museums often contain valuable things and they have armed guards around them. These are very safe places to be. And in your safe state, it allows your mind to wander and explore. And by looking at what has been, you then understand what might be.
Nicely put.
Eureka.
Gee, I have to follow that. Thank you.
Trust me, between the words and the visual, you are in very, very good shape.
Well, it's interesting that he told about going to Sears because I kind of have a similar feeling. It's not the hardware store,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
for me, whenever I travel to just any random city for whatever purpose, work, pleasure, out of the country, one of the things, and my children know this, and everybody in my family, is I say, okay, what museum is in that city? That's the first thing I look up, you know, things to do, and I scroll through all the other little stuff, and I look for a museum. For me, it has always been that opportunity to learn about something that I didn't know about. And my children usually go kicking and screaming. But by the time we end, they end up with all this wonderful, useless facts that they can share with other people. They've learned something new. I think the very first time I came here to Kansas City, I looked up museums, and there was the Jazz Museum, there was the Negro League Museum. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I learned a lot going there. So I always look at museums as that is that opportunity, one, education and preservation. And for me, preservation is important because coming from, I consider it a small estate, even though Lead Belly was a giant, I'm pretty much a one-man show. It's just, you know, me, my brother, my sibling, trying to take over what my grandmother started. But I am learning that there's so much when you talk about different things. I was recently at an exhibit at the LBJ Library, and one of the things, just looking at all the different things, you just saw things that you're like, wow. I saw Ella Fitzgerald's cabaret card. So it made me look at what I have in the Lead Belly archives differently. That there's value in something that I think is insignificant that will matter to someone else. And I've been, when we had Lead Belly's guitar on loan at the Smithsonian Museum in DC, to be a part of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that also when, you know, to your point, I do the same thing. When you look up what's interesting in the city that you're going to visit, I do also prioritize museums because to me, that shows that's what the community prioritizes.
Yeah.
And so what is a priority in this city? What are you saying I should be learning? Because I can't learn it all. I can't always be learning all the things simultaneously. I have to focus. So what is this city telling me to focus on as an attendee, as a tourist? And so especially with the way that you're putting this together by having past, present, and future, it's very accessible. And you're saying that here's a direct lineage between music. And you're explaining it to everyone, and you're saying, you know, the element of also having a live music venue attached and right there, it becomes a very holistic experience of learning about music. You're gonna read it, you're gonna see a visual of it, you're gonna hear it, then you're gonna see a live performance, and you're gonna say, how does that tether back to what I learned about earlier? And I think that all of that shows that the city of Boston is prioritizing the lineage of music in folk Americana roots. And so as a tourist, I go on the duck boat.
Yeah.
You know, right? I prioritize certain things. I have kids, let's go on the duck boat.
Yeah.
And now I get to say, well, what else is the city offering? And so to have this place, I think, really just shows the importance of Americana folk music. So I'm very excited to be a part of this. My grandfather loved playing with other musicians. I know sometimes maybe we think of Woody as a solo artist. That was situational, that was not intentional. He loved playing with people as much as possible, but because we only have a handful of photos of him really, like the image of him being this single solitary musician has been, portrayed. So I love that he's with a group of people, because he would love that. He would love being with Leadbelly so much, and so many of these other musicians, but being part of this musical family and this musical lineage, and again, the priority, saying this is a priority to be learning. I'm very excited.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so since it is a music Hall of Fame, and you all either performed as a representative of one of the inductees, or you're from the family of an inductee, when you think about your family or your own music, what song, we always look at what our guests are going to take away from exhibits. And take away can mean so many things. But if you were thinking about a song from yourself or your family member that you would like people to be singing on their way home as inspiration to do something creative on their own, or to just celebrate what the past was and what the future can be, what would that be? We'll start with Anna.
Coming back to me.
Yeah,
I
we'll
see,
go back.
I see the eye contact. I see.
She knows.
So, it's really hard. Woody wrote over 3,000 songs, recorded only 10% of them, and over the last 30 years, under the direction of my mom, Nora Guthrie, we've released another 300. So that's 20% of Woody's output that is known, if you know all of those. So that's a hard question to answer, and I will say my answer changes every day. Right now, in this moment, I will say Pastures of Plenty is a song it's really resonating with me. Plain Wreck at Los Gatos, Deportee, the story of migrants and telling the stories of a people, and hoping that has resonance with you, that you see that in your community, you see that in the world. I mean, it's there, so I hope you see it. But that idea of prioritizing someone else's story and taking it on your journey is something that I'm always hoping that young children do. And because we work with new musicians, the sound of Woody is changing, right? It's his lyrics, but the sound evolved from Woody to Dropkick Murphys and all these places in between, from Klezmatics and klezmer music to David Amram and classical. So the sound changes. But I would say that right now, for me, what's resonating is the story of migrants and the journey of people, to see that in our community.
Well, I am going to go with the obvious. For Leadbelly, for me, the song that always resonates is Goodnight Irene. And for many reasons. It is that theme song that kind of brings everybody together at the end of the night. It's the song, they did it at the opening reception. And it's that sing-along. It's, to hear it at the soccer stadiums. And the interesting thing, and over the years, people will always send me things and tell me about things and say, did you know that so-and-so ended their concert with Goodnight Irene? And it could be the most random person. Well, you're not random, but one year, I was sent videos, YouTube of Jack White ending his concert with Goodnight Irene. And then months later, someone sent me the Yin Yang Twins singing Goodnight Irene at the end of their show. Completely two opposites, but it's that testament of bringing people together, that regardless of what genre of music you're in, it's that feel-good song. It's whether you're celebrating a win in the soccer stadium or just a concert and paying homage. So that's always been my favorite. But I will not sing.
Livingston's
We're going to get a
timing.
live
Livingston.
answer.
Yeah. His timing is impeccable. Look at that. Right back.
What's that thing you got on your lap there?
Testing
What's that
one.
called?
Has to be the show off.
If you got it, flaunt it. Certainly knows, nobody knows that better than you. Come on. You can do it till the dream comes true. You can do it till the sky goes blue. I know it's dark, but in your heart there's a light that will see you through. Here's a melody to help you cope, even when you're at the itty-bitty end of your rope. Jump up, join in again, shoulders up, stick out your chin, elbow grease and soap. Never lose hope. The new year starts tomorrow. The past is done its worst. No need to hide, the world's so wide. Water for your thirst. Hey, even Boston lost its curve. Saddle the band, start to ride. Giddy up, you found your stride. Gallop away on this beautiful day. It was all inside. You toughed it out and played it through. And you stayed true to you. You're on the other side. You left behind your foolish pride, your names in the envelope. Oh, never lose. Oh, never lose. Oh. Well, that song just about sums it up.
That's it.
There it is.
That's just gorgeous. Well, you know, coming from a 60-year history with a group that's had, that's been given so many iconic moments, it's pretty easy to borrow from Dylan, you know, and say, you gotta go out of here singing, the answer is blowing in the wind, or borrowing from Seeger, you gotta go out of here saying, if I had Lee Hayes, if I had a hammer, borrow from Woody, you gotta go out of here saying, this land is your land, this land is my land. You know, there are songs that have had special moments politically. To have, excuse me, I just had a brain fart there. I'm just thinking of the political relevance of dig rock and roll music.
Yeah.
But I won't go there.
Yeah.
But to have written El Salvador, you know, and have it so meaningfully heard by the people of El Salvador in a recent, you know, not a recent visit, but a visit at the tree right there. But I did coincidentally write a song that I told Dina about when I saw the title of this particular panel called Standing on the Shoulders. Actually, it's Standing on Their Shoulders, I think. And she suggested that I could sing it at the end. Is now the time to do it?
Well, yeah, Liv broke the ice.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's not a guitar. It is going to require some singing from you guys. I've been thinking about Isaac Newton and the apple apple that fell from his tree, and the subsequent notion that somehow that motion was related gravity. Now you may think he'd want the credit for the laws and the theories he proposed, but I found Mr. Newton to be a humble dude when I read something else that he composed. He said, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Inheriting the knowledge of the ones who come before us, standing on the shoulders of giants, and from way up here you can see much more. Yeah, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, honoring to the bonafide one, standing on the shoulders of giants. From way up here you can see much more. I'm just a simple songwriter, but the thought did occur to me. If the theory is true, then what about the musical part of our history? Aren't we all standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders of the ones that come before us? Standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders. And now we see that it all began. The story of a woman, the story of a man, and the first piece of music, you can bet it wasn't planned, was when a little baby cried, I am, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders of the ones that come before us. Standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulder. One last time with everybody now. Standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders of the one that come before us. Standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders, standing on the shoulders of love.
Amazing coincidence.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Apparently our brains were on the same wavelength.
In a galaxy somewhere.
Somewhere. So I know all of you have seen the 28 names that are part of the inaugural inductee class for FARHOF. Putting aside yourselves or the estates or family that you represent, when you look at the names, and I don't know if they did their homework. I don't know if we need to borrow something so they can see the list again. If that's the case, I'll get that for you. But looking at the names of the people that are being inducted, who is one person that you're really glad made that first cut? And why do you think that their legacies are important? Yes, thank you, Anna.
I need the list.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I do the same thing. It's like, there's 28, there's a lot. Do one of you have an idea, or do we need to look at the brochure? Okay, Tarika did her homework because she's the best.
Well, I don't know about that. I have to remember a few names. One person that stands out to me is Odetta. And Odetta was very integral in the folk revival at that time frame. And just as an African American, her contribution to the activism and using her music to do that says a lot, which, to be honest, in the folk realm, that's what a lot of the artists have used is their musical talents, Woody, for political reasons and activism. And so she stood out to me as one who I'm glad is there, and Livingston's in good hands with her and the rest of everyone.
Fantastic. Anna?
List isn't in the book. because I know.
Well, I'm
there's
gonna help you out here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tina.
When the selection committee was paring down, I think we started off with about 178 names, and we were paring it down to a more approachable number. One of the last people that was added to the list was Ramblin' Jack Elliott.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
And may I
Sure, I guess I'll talk about Jack.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my grandfather said Woody often sounds more like me than I do. And I think that's kind of such a testament to just that continuation, right? It's not about Woody, it's about other people. And he doesn't literally mean my voice, he means my story, my way of expressing my voice. And Jack is performing actively right now. And to see, you know, I think, you know, I know Tarika and I have talked about this, the idea for Jack, I am very happy for him to see acknowledgement within his lifetime. He's worked really hard and connected, you know, skiffle to Woody Guthrie, to the Beatles, to, I mean, just like this whole other level of connectivity. On a personal note, you know, he was one of those people who was with my grandfather when he was sick with Huntington's and really took care of him. The joke is Jack came over to, you know, say hi to the family and stayed for 2 years. So, you know, Jack is really instrumental. He's the reason why my Uncle Arlo met my Aunt Jackie. And so we have a lot of ways of connecting to Jack, but personally, I think that, you know, as a person who had a grandfather with a very difficult fatal illness, anyone who was part of his story at that moment holds a very special place in my heart to be able to take care of someone in that moment. I wasn't around yet, my mom was still a kid, so I really look to Jack with so much gratitude and appreciation personally, and then professionally. What an incredible storyteller and continuer of some of the most incredible songs of people. And so I'm so excited that Jack is in it. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah. One of my favorite Arlo stories is about when he was a teenager and your grandmother sent him to California and under Jack's care. And it was like, he's going, yeah, I'll go. That's right.
We're going to a rodeo? What?
That's great.
Okay, let's do it.
So for Livingston and for Noel, since James is part of this inaugural inductee class, you know, how do you feel about your brother being part of this core, this foundation of what everything's going to be built on at FARHOF?
Well, I feel, as James feels, absolutely delighted and honored to be in such august company. As the brother, I believe that James should be there. One of the things that always bemuses me is people coming to me and regaling me with James Taylor's stories. I need to remind them that I've been there for 73 years. I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago, people. It's fine. I know the character of which you speak.
Yeah.
That said, James is a wonderful part of the musical fabric of Boston and of Massachusetts. And though we were raised in North Carolina, our mother came from Newburyport, Massachusetts, and is Yankee, really Yankee through and through. And our father went to Harvard Medical School and did his residency at MGH. So I'm, in terms of deep youthful suffering, I'm not sure that James deserves admission, but certainly in terms of heart, in terms of representing Boston, and really understanding that our youth was built on Woody Guthrie records, Peter, Paul and Mary, the Kingston Trio. These were Odetta, I know this goes on and on. These were really at the fundamental core of our musical origins. So,
I think the person missing most here today is Peter Yarrow.
Yeah.
Not enough attention has been brought to the incredible amount of music, politically directed, culturally directed, romantically directed. I mean, Don't Take Away My Freedom, the great Mandela. If his health had been better, I'm sure that he would be here. But I don't want to leave the idea of Peter, Paul, and Mary being inducted without saluting my brother, my partner, and a great songwriter and humanitarian, Peter Yarrow.
Yeah.
I want you to know that I was at a festival called the 30A Festival down in the Redneck Riviera, Panhandle, Florida, and I was with Peter there, and it was one of the special moments of my career to be. He invited me up on stage, and I saw him before he went on, and Peter Yarrow is an old man now, and he shakes a lot, and he looks old, unlike Noel, who seems to defy the years that this hymn hit me twice. And but Peter has a lot of tremor, and so he was on stage and he saw me, and it was just a third of the house. The young ones have drifted away, and to see Peter's forgiveness and grace in the face of that, and so he asked me, he says, "Come on stage," and he asked me right away, and I said, "No, I am here to be at the feet of the master." At which point he's a little befuddled by this, maybe slightly, and he goes, "No, you're the master." And I look at him and say, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Unless you're around.
Yeah.
And it was just, I cannot tell you that Peter, Paul, and Mary are just the energy and the commitment, the beauty of the music. The fact that when I was a kid, there was a thought that Mary might kiss me someday.
Yeah.
Don't over, good looks help. And yeah, it was, that is, as far as I'm concerned.
You know, I was thinking today about the Obama's book was called The Audacity of Hope, remember? And I was thinking about a phrase that came out yesterday, I guess, at one of these keynotes, was the authenticity of intent. And when I think of Mary and her background, and Peter's background, living in New York, you know, none of us were culturally related to many of the songs that we sang about. So we were considered city slickers or, you know, too slick or something. But the authenticity of intent won out. Because if you take a position enough times over a number of years, you become known for the position that you took. Yeah. So I'm here for Mary as well.
So as we start to wrap things up, sorry, we do have to watch clock, but as we start to wrap things up, I do want to encourage you, if you haven't stopped by the FARHOF table, it's easy to see. It's right in the middle of your walkway. And the list of all of the inductees is posted so that you can see that. I would recite them, but I would forget some of them. There's a lot. But make sure you stop by, sign up for the mailing list so you can stay updated on what we're doing, both with programming and exhibits. We have a lot of things planned and look forward to sharing more. Now, Noel is going to, as you should, end with a song to send you on your way. I just feel like we need to still do a song. You guys, what do you guys want to
see
do?
what you- Huh?
Irene, good night.
Oh, that's lovely idea.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
lovely idea. Are you leading?
Hi,
We
come
got,
up with the idea.
we've got some professionals here.
I know.
Let's go let one up.
Wow.
Look,
Well,
be,
you know, if we're gonna close, you just said to close, and well,
Right.
the idea of closing with a
It is.
sing-along.
You said
It is.
You guys ended
I'm
with
trying to
that,
think of it.
so.
I mean, the chorus is so memorable, you know. This is sometimes I live in the country, sometimes I live in town, sometimes I get the feeling I really ought to settle down. Give us a key, G. Is that key? Yeah, that's good. I live in town. Sometimes I get the notion that I really ought to settle down, and everybody singing, I read good night. I read good night. Yeah, good night. I read good night. Woo! I see you in my dreams. Stop your rambling. Stop your gambling. Stop staying out so late at night. Go home to your husband and your children and treat them all quite right. I made that part. Yeah. I read good night. I read good night. Good night, Irene. Good night, Irene. I see you in my dreams. Good night, y'all.
Yeah.
Please join me again in thanking this incredible plant.
Yeah.
And it's an only